Hey, y'all, in the last 48 hours, there have been two groups of people that I have seen thrown under the bus of illegal immigration. You could almost say slandered, put into a category where they're not legally in. And all that does is that shines a bad light on a group of people that we shouldn't even be shining a bad light on. And this causes problems. This causes actually hatred. It caused problems with people's perspective of other groups of people because they're just being talked negatively about. They're being slandered publicly. I've seen this on X, on social media. And these two groups of people are refugees and asylum seekers. Now, as I get into why this is a problem, because the term I keep seeing in the last 48 hours on social media is illegal refugees. This is actually an issue if we're going to label them as illegal refugees, because honestly, I think it's because people just aren't doing their homework. Okay, I'm going to read the definition of what a refugee is. Now, this definition was a definition created by the United Nations in 1951 and was also part of the 1967 protocol. And I know there's a lot of Christians who they have a complete disdain for the United Nations, and that's fine. I don't really care about that. But the United States in 1980, under the Refugee Act of 1980, included this exact definition to define a refugee. Okay, so this definition, and I'm going to read it for you. A refugee is a person who is unable or unwilling to return to their home country and cannot obtain protection in that country, aka their home country, due to past persecution or a well-founded fear of being persecuted in the future on account of race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, or political opinion. Okay, again, this was the definition created by the UN in 1951, but also adopted by the United States government in 1980 under the Refugee Act of 1980. Okay, why do I bring this up? Because when we say illegal refugee, we need to know what we're talking about. Okay, there's some things that are true, always true, in every situation, whether people want to accept it or not, or embrace it or not. And there's three things. First, truth matters, especially as believers, since I tend to target Christian audiences. As believers, disciples of Jesus, Christians, truth absolutely matters. Okay, I think most Christians would agree with that. Sometimes we have a kind of a different definition of what that means, but let's just say truth matters. And truth is always backed up by evidence. Okay, truth is not backed up by sound bites, but evidence. Evidence that can be proven. Second, words matter. Okay, even the Bible talks about how our words matter. Okay, a sharp tongue, a tongue that speaks evil, has an extreme negative effect on other people. Okay, but a compassionate word, a word that is a blessing to other people also has an effect on people, but in a positive way. So yes, words matter. Definitions matter. Okay, now, whether in this scenario or other scenarios that I've been in, I've seen so many people over the years take definitions and twist them and change them to meet their bias or their perceived soundbite or whatever. Either way, they've just ignored actual definitions of words, which is mind-boggling. I mean, I even was talking to someone the other day, and they were talking about the school they're in and a definition that was on a test. And they actually wrote the definition that was in the Oxford Dictionary, the recognized definition of this word that they had to put on their test. And their teacher marked it wrong. And though this person went up to their teacher, talked to them about it, said, look, this is the Oxford definition. This is the question on the test. I answered it correctly. Why did you mark it wrong? And his response, because it wasn't the definition I gave you, as if his definition meant anything. Okay. Now, granted, the teacher did reverse it because she had a solid argument with actual proof. Okay, it wasn't just a soundbite. It just wasn't emotion behind what this student was claiming. There was actual facts that they presented to their teacher, so the teacher had no choice but to accept it, and they did. But the problem was he was like trying to change the definition to what he wanted it to be, and then and marking it wrong with all the students who didn't answer it his way, which is ludicrous. Okay. So in the same way, when we're dealing with refugees and asylum seekers, the truth matters, the words matter, the definitions matter. So this definition of a refugee by the United States is important. Okay, now I get it. I've been to multiple countries where I've met with refugees, specifically from Syria. And I would say that some of these refugees in those countries are classified illegal, but there's a caveat there. When they came into those countries welcomed them because of the civil war in Syria. So technically, they didn't come illegally. They fled violence and the neighboring country welcomed them. But then the country turned them into an illegal immigrant to try and get rid of them. Okay? But I'm not here to talk about that. But I am mentioning that because I'm not naive to the fact that some refugees are considered illegal in some places. But why is that different from on a neighboring country to Syria versus here in the United States? Well, two reasons: Pacific Ocean and Atlantic Ocean. Two big body of waters between us. Okay, we don't have countries bordering our country that are in extreme violence, civil war, or significant oppression. That's not happening in Canada. That's not happening in Mexico. And so people aren't flooding into our country, fleeing violence by the millions. Okay? And so when they come to the United States, because of the geographical position of where we are, they're going through a legal refugee process. They're either in a UN refugee camp or something like that. And so they're going through a legal refugee process through the United States government, which takes a couple of years to go through. And they're being vetted. So by the time they land on U.S. soil, not only have they been in that process for a couple of years and have been vetted, but they've been approved to come here. Basically, in essence, they've been given a visa. And they've been given a visa to relocate to our country or to the United States and start their life over. Okay? And so when they're here, they're legal. So to call them illegal is pure nonsense. It's just not a reality here in the States. Irregardless if someone could take their life and say, well, look, according to this definition I read earlier, I meet that definition. All right? If you cross the border illegally, you're not a refugee. You're just an illegal immigrant. Okay, plain and simple. That is the definition that applies to that person. But if they come through the refugee process and they are classified as a refugee, then they are a refugee and they are here legally. Now, what about asylum seekers? So asylum seekers are people who weren't classified as a refugee, but they generally meet the standard definition. Okay, they've come to, in terms of the U.S., to the U.S. border. They've come to, or they've crossed the border. So sometimes before the border, sometimes after they've crossed the border. And granted, yes, some of them crossed illegally, I'm sure. I'm not going to deny that fact. But when they crossed, they went straight to someone, as I have seen in reports in the past where Chinese were crossing the border over in California. They were told where the custom officers or the immigration officers were at, or the border officials were at. And they went straight there to claim asylum. Now, just because you claim asylum doesn't mean you get put in the process. You still have to prove to someone initially in an interview that you qualify, or at least you could say pre-qualify for asylum. Okay? You're not granted asylum. You're just approved or denied access to the asylum process. If you're denied, then you're put through deportation proceedings. Okay, you're just not let go into the system. Now, people who are granted to be in the process, there's two things I've read. One, they can be let go into the community, which we know has been done. The other side is they can actually be detained, but they have to be detained in the U.S. during the process, which we know has been done to some degree in the past, but there's been a lot of lawsuits and other things going on trying to stop that. Haven't looked to see if that's being done right now, but the issue is, are they legal or illegal? So once they claim asylum and they've been approved, now these are people who have been approved to be in the process. So these are people approved to seek asylum. These people are now in the States legally, well, I don't care. If they're fleeing extreme persecution, I want us to welcome them and help them. Okay. I do. Okay. I think as Christians, we should want to do that. Now, if they're denied, I have no issue with them being deported. If they cross illegally over and never claim asylum, I have no issue with the deportations at all. Not one bit. Okay? Actions have consequences. And if you do something illegally and you're caught in that process, well, guess what? There's a consequence to it. And your consequence doesn't just affect the person doing it, it affects a lot of other people, even children. Unfortunately, it affects children too. But asylum seekers, people who are approved to be in the asylum seeking process, are now legal in the United States, and they can be in the United States. However, they've been released or detained in a detention center. They're here legally as they go through the process. Okay. Now, it doesn't mean they're here forever. And if you don't follow the rules of the asylum seeking process, then you will be denied and you can be deported. Now, people like that who are claiming asylum and they're granted to be in the process. Okay, they're pre-approved to be in the process. And then after that process, they decide, to heck with all this. I'm not going to go through this. I'm just going to roam around the United States and do what I want, work where I want, however I want. Guess what? You have lost the right to be in the process. So if you refuse to show up to hearings and proceedings and meetings that you're required to be at, then yes, you deserve to be in the deportation process. But for those who are following the rules, going to the interviews, going to the proceedings, going to the court hearings, if they're following through with everything they're supposed to do while they're in that process, then we should be hands off and let them go through the process. Let the rule of law, the laws that are on the books that govern these processes, play out. And if they're denied, then yes, they'll probably get deported. But if they're granted in the end, then they're going to get the stay. So yes, I do believe unequivocally that refugees and these pre-approved asylum seekers being thrown under the bus in the name of illegal immigration when they're not at that point, especially refugees are definitely not, because they didn't hop the fence at the border. This needs to stop. And in the last 48 hours, I've seen so much rhetoric about this. And that's really the reason why I'm creating this video. And what's even more troubling to me is not so much the rhetoric about it, which is problematic, but where a lot of this rhetoric is coming from. My own tribe. Now, that's a broad tribe because there's parts of that broad conservative tribe that I don't adhere to, okay? But in terms of the evangelical Christian tribe, when I've seen pastors and Christians, very vocal Christians, call these people illegal when they, by definition, are not. That's a problem. That's why I say truth matters. Words matter. Definitions matter. If we just toss that aside because we say, well, who can you believe anymore? That's like people who say, well, you can't believe the news anymore. Well, what news are you talking about? Are you talking about your news channels that you think are truthful or the other guys that you think are heretics? Okay. Words matter. Truth matters. Definitions matter. And we need to stop throwing these people under the bus as if they don't matter, because they do. Okay. They are created in the image of God. They are imago Dei, whether you like it or not. They are here. And if they are here, they have every right to get what is needed to help them restart their lives. That's why these laws exist. We want to do that. I get that there's problems in the United States and they need to be fixed as well. But we don't turn a blind eye to people trying to come legally, trying to get help, trying to start a new life when I know firsthand, not firsthand in terms of experience, but firsthand in terms of face-to-face conversation, like not just one, not just two, not just some random interaction. I mean, I have spent tons of hours with some of these people, learning about them, hearing their stories, getting to know why they're in the position they're in and why they're seeking to go where they're going. Okay. And I've met so many of them that are seeking to do it through legal means. Okay. I'm not advocating to let people in illegally. I'm advocating for these people who are doing it legally, who are doing it and needing, because you know what? You or me, if we were in their situation and we were as desperate as they were, man, to think, oh, well, we're not going to do what they do because, we're a rule of law people. Believe me, I bet if you were in their situation, if we were as desperate as they were, we'd be willing to do more than we think to get to another location to have a better life. Okay. That's just truth. And as Christians, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control, the fruit of the Spirit, should be determining how we treat everyone we interact with. Okay? It doesn't mean you don't face evil. It doesn't mean you don't combat evil or deal with evil. But honestly, I know there's a bad apple in the group, but I've never personally met a refugee family in my community or abroad that I would even come close to labeling as evil, because the people I've met, they just want to live in peace. It's just people who want to provide for their family, live at peace, and be contributors to their community and society. Okay, generally people who speak against them are people I've met that really didn't have any experience talking with them. But anyways, let me know what you think. I know this is a touchy subject. I know it's a sensitive subject. I know it's a very passionate subject. But tell me what you think. But I'm going to challenge you with something. Come with facts. Don't come with sound bites from a YouTube video or your favorite politician or something like that. Come with actual facts. I came to you with facts in terms of definitions and what's going on. Come with me with facts. If you think I'm wrong, prove it in a way that can actually hold up in a court of law. And so I look forward from hearing from you, and I'll see you next time.